a servant faithful to a faithful God. "60 years ago this Thursday, May 17, the fifth child of Mr. Pablo and Mrs. Estrella Madarang was born in Baguio City, Philippines. His grandmother on his father's side, who was a devout Roman Catholic and related to the former President Ferdinand Marcos, volunteered to name him Jerome Marcos, who to us today is PsJerry. After his elementary grades at St. Louis Laboratory School in Baguio City, PsJerry's mother wanted him to be a priest. So at 13 years old, he was sent away to study at San Jose Minor Seminary, a Jesuit seminary in Novaliches, Quezon City, which prepared high school students for the priesthood. At that time, it looked like PsJerry was on his way to becoming a priest. But God had other plans. After 2 years, the seminary where he was studying closed. He then had to go back to Baguio City to continue his high school there at St. Louis Boys High School. One day in March 1973, he and his high school friends were chilling out at Burnham Park. They soon found themselves listening to a British missionary share about salvation in Jesus. It was on that day, in that park, where PsJerry surrendered his life to God and received Jesus as Savior and Lord. The British missionary followed him up in his early journey with Christ. After graduating from high school, he enrolled at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, to take up a course in agriculture. It was also at this time that he got discipled through Campus Crusade for Christ. As he grew in his relationship with God, he sensed God's calling for him to serve God on a full-time basis. He could also sense that he needed to prepare himself for this calling by going to the Bible school, but he ignored his calling for a while. He pursued his secular studies instead, and in 1983, he completed BS Economics at the University of the Cordilleras in Baguio. He worked after that, but he knew he could no longer run away from God's call. In the summer of 1986, he just had to say yes to God and went for training on ministry to troubled youth in Singapore and Malaysia for 6 months. When he returned to the Philippines, there was an opportunity for him to pioneer a church in Baguio City called Light of the World Christian Fellowship. The son, who his mother wanted to be a priest, became a pastor instead. A year after that, in 1987, he married Sister Gloria Madarang, who he met in 1976 in a summer class in Spanish at the University of the Philippines in Baguio City. It was also during these years of pioneering work that he decided to attend Asia Pacific Theological Seminary in Baguio City and complete his Master of Arts in Biblical Studies in 1989. In that same year, their one and only son David Paul was born. After 4 years of pastoring Light of the World, a door opened up for PsJerry to go to San Jose, California in 1990 to join his family. Over there, he became the associate pastor of Full Gospel Church for 2 years, after which the Lord led him and his family to pioneer a church in a place called Union City, California. PsJerry pastored this church called Family Church of Praise for 13 years and led his church to give birth to 2 other churches in Tracy and Milpitas, California. In 2003, PsJerry sensed that their mission as a family in California had been completed and that they were now ready to move on to another ministry. After seeking God's direction and guidance, Lydia Wilson, his sister-in-law, called and asking him to pray about coming to Singapore to pastor the Living Word Fellowship, since Pastor Lydia's family would now be migrating to California. Pastor Jerry saw this as an answer to his prayer for the next ministry God was directing them as a family. After 1 year of preparing physically, emotionally, and spiritually, Pastor Jerry and his family came to the Living Word Fellowship in January 2005. As of this time, he is leading the church through a period of leadership transition, even as once again he senses God's direction for a new phase in their ministry. For someone who has served God in a full-time capacity for 31 years, Pastor Jerry's life is a testimony of God's goodness and faithfulness. As he turned 60 on May 17, 2017, he says with deep conviction that he will continue to be faithful to the faithful God he met 44 years ago. Like Caleb, he has decided to continue to pursue God and his plan and purpose for his life, even in his golden years. Today, we celebrate the life of a servant faithful to his faithful God. All praises and thanksgiving to God alone.
Happy birthday